Uh, okay, it seems that the recording started. So this is an official IETF meeting. It's a COSE interim meeting, and as an official IETF meeting, the note well applies. I believe everyone on the call is already familiar with it, but I guess if anyone has any questions regarding that, please let the chairs know. So this is our agenda for today. We will be going through a few administrative things and discussions on drafts and charter. And our expectation is the bulk of the time to be dedicated to CBOR certificates.
This is Russ. I sent you some slides for countersign.
Yes, that for now is put under the update of draft status.
Okay, that's perfect.
We'll show your slides.
That's perfect, thank you.
Yes, thanks for checking this. So, okay, let's continue. If there is no bashing of the agenda, then. So, already presented the note well. Minutes will be taken at this URL. For now, we don't have an official minute taker. We are looking for someone to help us with the action items. Any volunteers?
This is Russ. I'll help with the minutes, but somebody else needs to do it while I'm talking.
Okay, that sounds perfect. Thank you, Russ. And yeah, I think we'll be able to handle the jabber with Matthew. Okay, yes, if you want to see the slides, here is another link. Otherwise, they are also in the data tracker. And if you haven't put your name in the minutes, please add yourself to the attendees there. Okay. So with that, we can move to the document status for the hash algorithm and RFC 8152 bis AUX. They are in the RFC editor queue waiting for the struct document. For the struct document, there are a few edits that are still remaining, and Matthew is going to follow up on them. I don't know, Matthew, if you have anything to add about this now, or
there's nothing to say more about this right now. It's very slowly in progress.
Okay. And then for the X509 document, I submitted a new revision like 1 or 2 days ago, and there were a few things that were still raised as comments or things that might be considered. I listed a few of them here. So one of them was that now the document is made standard track document, as it was discussed during the ISG review. Yes, the idea was other people to be able to depend on it, and there was no reason that we could see why not do it a standard track document. If anyone has any objections, please let us know. Another point that Ben raised was that maybe there would be something for X509 and counter signature. There are some overlappings maybe between them, and we need to see which of the two documents would be handling that. Yes, are there any opinions on this? Okay, so I will bring this to the mailing list as a separate item, but yes, it was in Ben's review if anyone wants to look at it before that. So yes, this is an action item for me. And then the reference to RFC 8152 was informative, and that was changed to normative because, as Ben pointed out, it didn't feel correct to have the document reference RFC 8152 just as informative reference. And similarly, as for the counter signature, I think there was a question whether we want to be able to directly support CBOR certificates in X509, or what is exactly, maybe it's in the document for CBOR certificates that we are going to add this, but we might just want to make sure the text in the X509 draft doesn't stop us from doing this. So those were some points about the X509 document that I thought are worth mentioning here. And
this is Jonathan. It was pointed out in reviews that the previous version referenced the GitHub examples and that there were no examples for X509. So that text was removed in the latest version. But I did submit a pull request to the examples repo with some examples for X509.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, then we can add back the link, and that would be something I will look at. And yes, please write to the action items for me also to do that. And Lawrence, I think you might also have some points to discuss. I thought it could be easier to discuss them now, but yes.
Hi, this is Lawrence. Were you asking me there?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So one way to frame this might be harmonization with the really similar header parameters in JWS, because JWS has an X5T, an X5 chain, and an X5U. Doesn't have an X5 bag, and there's a few things that are different between them, or maybe not as clear in the X509 COSE X509 draft as they are as clear in the JWS draft. So one of them is identification of the end entity certificate. I wrote an email on that. The other is the whether the headers are protected or not. And in my view, JWS section 6 handles that really well, and it seems like it would be good to have the same thing in COSE X509. and I've mentioned this a few times. I don't know if you want me to file issues or just emails or whatever you think is best, but those are two. And then maybe there's also some harmonization with on the X5U parameter in terms of the way it's treated from a security point of view. I haven't looked at that one as closely, but it seems like they are also different.
Yes. Well, yes, it's possible. Could you file issues, for example, in GitHub?
Oh, sure.
And then yeah, I will look into that in more details, and also if you have any suggestions for text for the harmonization, that would be really appreciated.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments about this document?
Yeah, I recognize, this is Jonathan Hamill. So I recognize that you want to make it aligned with JWS, but I'm not sure that it's clear that these header parameters should always be in protected headers, particularly in section 6 of 7515. It says that they only must be integrity protected if the information conveyed is utilized in a trust decision. And if it's not, if the trust decision only uses the key, then they need not be. And so I'm not sure that's entirely clear of what the decision should be made, particularly when you take the example of CMS, where certificates are not protected by signatures, or and the signatures on the certificates themselves protect additional parameters. I don't know if anyone else had thoughts about that.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts about that. This is Lawrence again. My understanding, I mean, I was kind of thrown for a loop on this myself, but two things changed my mind. Or I guess the way I would frame it is CMS didn't address this. This is kind of a new attack, or a new sort of new vulnerability, and it's Ben in his discussion of X5U, kind of brought up the point, and then the fact that JWS addresses it. That was kind of the 2 points there. And I agree that they don't always have to be in protected headers. But sometimes they should be. And my understanding is that the basic attack here is that a CA issues two certificates with the same key, but different extensions, like or usage things like extended key use, or path length constraints. So they issue two different certificates with the same key but different characteristics. So therefore, you really do need to make sure your reference is to the certificate, not just to the key. So I'm kind of keying off of what JWS did and what Ben said, and it does make some sense to me.
So from what Ben said, he argued specifically on the X5U parameter to be in protected headers because of there was no trust between the accessing the URL to obtain the certificate. And in the example you gave with the certificate authority changing the certificate parameters, I think that's a really, I don't know. I don't know of a CA that would actually do that without revoking the other certificate, changing properties of it particularly. It could change, like issue a new expiry date, but changing key usage without revoking the other one I think would be a dangerous operation for a CA to do. And but I'm also not sure what, like particularly what the attack is. Like the attack would only be if they actually restricted the key usage further in the second issuance and didn't revoke the original one. And so if they, that to me, it would be a failure in the X509 certificate management.
So I agree that a CA that does this seems a little bit lame, maybe a lot lame. I do think that the expiration date is of similar consequence here as the key use and path length and other things in the certificate. And then on Ben's argument, when I read Ben's argument, I thought that it was about this other fields in the certificate. So it seemed to me that Ben's argument extended to all forms of identification of the end entity, not just X5U. He never followed up on that to answer that, whether he thought that was true or not, so I don't really know what he's thinking. And then when I read the Section 6 of JWS, it seems to line up with that. So I agree it's kind of an obscure thing, but in a way, but I think the lineup with JWS is good.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much longer with this in the agenda, but if you can propose, if you have some text that would clearly state when it should be in a protected header versus allowing it in an unprotected header, I'd be willing to review that.
Yeah, and the only thing I'm after is the same as JWS. So.
And Ben also joined, so we'll be able to ask him. I'm wondering how much time will we need for the other points and whether that is something that we can follow up on the mailing list with, but yes, so Ben, just a little bit of context for what we were discussing is the protected headers in X509, and yes, there was discussion in the mailing list. Do you want to follow up on that on the mailing list, or do you want to discuss this now? Okay, that works. Okay, then let's continue with the counter signature document. So please, Russ, go ahead.
Okay, just a little while ago, 02 was posted. Next slide. So in it, there are examples, 2 of which were provided by Jim Schad, and many thanks to Jonathan for providing 3 more examples. Though he did PRs against the document, and I pulled them in. I believe he also put them in the examples repo. Next slide. And so I would really appreciate it if some folks would check the examples. I know that Michael Richardson had previously said that he found the examples were necessary to understand exactly how to implement. And so it's good that we have more. I notice he's not here. But I think with that change, the document's now ready for last call within the working group. Hopefully somebody can check the examples as part of that last call. That's it for me, unless there's questions.
This is Jonathan. I just wanted to mention that the PR for the examples repo contains more examples than were included in the draft. So there's more examples there.
You've been busy, thank you. Okay, chairs, I hope we're ready for last call. I'm not hearing anybody object to it.
Yes, I think that should be fine. I will discuss with Matthew, but yes, I think it should be fine to have the last call sometime soon. Okay, and then rechartering. So for the rechartering, Matthew, would you mind giving us an update? I think there were some merge requests that were merged.
Yes, we merged the two PRs, and then I think Goran had some concerns with that we may have to back those out. They were around the certificate stuff, the certificate options there. Goran, you?
Here,
Yeah.
I need a reminder here. I don't know what I promised to do or what I should do.
No, this is, you had mentioned at some point some concern with the latest text around, this text for, in the charter around the certificates.
I thought I provided my input there. Sorry, do you have the charter in front of you? It's not visible on the slide, at least not in my slide.
Yes. Let me try to open that. Charter.
So yeah, I apologize. I thought I had provided the input and I was happy with what I saw, but let's have another look. Or we can do this offline if it's just me waiting for I can provide.
Okay.
So let's have a look.
So, okay, there is one more pull request.
What I remember is that we noted that the charter, that actually the work on the draft, on the CBOR certificates draft, had actually gone beyond the charter, and I wanted to have that, since there was an agreement in the working group around what the CBOR certificate draft should be about, I wanted that reflected in the charter. That was basically my input. But
Okay.
it was a major comment. And I think this...
It seems like you have not provided any. Did you write that on the list, or it doesn't seem like there's any pull request for your change?
No, I probably missed it. So allow me to get back to you on the...
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember your comment. It was changing it to referring to RFC 5280 instead, something.
Yeah.
In addition. Yeah.
action
Okay,
items for
yes, please.
Yeah.
Goran. Okay.
I mean, what the chairs can do is we can push this in its. The only other pull request that's in there right now is to delete all the essentially all the stricken out text. So we can merge that and send it around, send it onto the mailing list for review. And if there's any other questions or concerns with it, then we can address it from there. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. And with that, I think it's time for CBOR certificates.
Thank you. So the last submitted version is 05, and since then there have been some new issues, some work on GitHub, and some discussion on the list. Next slide. Yeah, next slide again. So just very quickly summarizing changes from 03 to 05. I have not received any comments on the list, but so basically compressed and then removed in the whole document. We will update the file name at a later point, probably when it's adopted, and we have to change the file name anyway. We added a reference to IEEE Dev ID and made optimizations for Dev ID. There was a comment that it was not really clear how this mapped to version 3, so we have added version 3 in a lot of places to make it very clear that this is for version 3, and version 3 is encoded in the CBOR certificate type. Removed some optimizations that was not necessary. Changed serial number to unwrapped CBOR positive big num. Changed time to CBOR epoch time. Added a special encoding for no expiration date, which is basically the maximum time positive. Then also used the CBOR tax OID, RFC for OIDs, and the CDL in there. Removed the term relative, which Russ pointed out was used wrongly. Then they have changed to omit signature instead of signature algorithm. It makes that the algorithm comes just before the signature itself. So next slide, unless there's any comments. Added organization identifier, change so that UTF strings have a positive signs in the native. Enable encoding of email address, fix the ambiguity with hex encoding pointed out by Russ. Added support for other name, and also added optimization for hardware module name. That's a type of other name which is used in Dev ID. We added support for registered ID. This was easy to do when we find out that it was used in some IoT policy. Then we added CBOR encoding for authority and subject key identifier. These are basically used in all certificates on the web. Added and also CRL distribution point and authority info access. Same there, there's also used. Next slide. As Michael Richardson requested, we moved the SHA-1 signal algorithms to 2-byte encoding, corrected some CDDL to correctly map allow or not allow empty sequence and sets. Add a public and private key for the CA key. So it's possible to verify the test vectors, example certificates in the draft. Add a note about KID and added consideration for experts. So Kirsten posted he wants to change from unsigned to positive or positive to unsigned. Yeah, good. Fix that. No, if there's no comments on done changes, then we can move on to planned and ongoing changes. So this is what has already been done in the GitHub version. If you follow this, is that we have added references to some other well-used X509 profiles, the CA browser forum baseline requirements that's basically used by all browsers and therefore all certificates on the web. And also to CNSA X509 profile, which has been published as an RFC. We recently got several requests to add CNSA cipher suits to ad hoc. This might be useful here also, just to make sure that we are compliant with both of these profiles. Then I added more references and text for other non-constrained protocols where certificate and certificate chain sizes might be a problem, and therefore small encodings might be useful. One example is EAP TLS. Their access points typically drop the EAP connection after a while. So large certificate basically makes, if you have a large certificate, which happens in practice, you cannot authenticate. Another recent example is Quick, where I don't know the Quick terms, but the server hello can basically be only 3 times larger than the client hello, what the client sent. So unless you can fit in that restrictions, you will add another round trip. This I've seen being discussed by Cloudflare in a blog where they show that TLS certificate compression is important here and improves performance. I think CBOR certificate could potentially also help here, but we would need concrete data on that in that case. Then we would like to add an example encoding of a dev ID certificate. Would be very good if somebody has such a certificate, so we can make it more relevant instead of trying to create one just from the dev ID specification. That could lead to, it would be probably a correct dev ID, but maybe not how they are used in practice. And I think Michael Richardson has, maybe he could help. I don't think he's on the call today. Yeah, you are.
I didn't quite understand the question because I was actually trying to send a message to the group. What was the part about the example certificate?
Yeah, so we would like to be useful to compress dev ID certificates, and we would like to add an example certificate in the draft. So do you have any dev ID?
I definitely do. I definitely do, and I definitely was thinking about how we could do a test case for this. So I certainly can compress it and uncompress it, but I was actually I had a different thought, which was probably there's some advantage in DTLS to compressing the certificate, even if the rest of the DTLS is big, because the certificate could be especially if it's a chain, could be more than a kilobyte in size. And so I was thinking, how could we test this whole thing in practice with DTLS? And so I was actually wondering to myself, and maybe it speaks to the previous point as well, do we need to allocate, or are we already allocating a TLS certificate type that says I'm a compressed certificate?
Yes, we do.
Oh, we are doing that, okay.
Yeah.
So we could actually hack this into the code right now and see how it performs there. Okay.
That's great. So then I expect some example dev ID certificate from you. If you provide I can compress it and add it to the draft.
I'll try to do that for mid-January.
Yeah, sounds great. No hurry. Then we are planning the draft already have an example HTTPS RSA certificate, the ones from tools.ietf.org. We plan to add one ECDSA certificate as well. And then coming back to basically what Michael just said, we would like to have more realistic data on what compression you could do in TLS. And as we have found out, our understanding is that Brotli is what is used in practice. So we are planning to change from sedlib to Brotli. We would like to have numbers for example certificates and change for Brotli, CBOR, and CBOR plus Brotli. If this is now a certificate type, you can use it with TLS certificate compression. And then we have on GitHub removed the ASN1 appendix. It was very RFC 7925 specific, and the draft is now supporting a much larger subset. We have suggested to the authors of 7925 BIS that they should add ASN1 instead. But if they will, is out of our hands right now. Any comments on this? No. Let's move on so we can go to then we have gotten a comment that we should have the private key to the public key in the example certificates. This allows to use the example certificates for test vectors in ad hoc. That has been requested. So that's the plan for 06. Has been request for more deployment guidance for IT, what should you choose and so on. This is more a high-level point, should probably be added at some point, but I don't have a clear view of exactly how this deployment guidance should look like. Could also be in other drafts than this. Then we tested the encoding on a set of HTTPS certificates on the web, and we found out that there's quite a lot of attributes that we had not registered. For example, street address, postal code, business category, jurisdiction of incorporation of country name, etc. We only looked at a quite small set of certificates and already found 4. Then street address and postal code are included in this browser forum baseline requirement, so we made registrations for them. For all other attributes, we made so that you can use a OID byte string encoding. So the proposal is to not do any CBOR encodings for this, but make sure that all certificates can be compressed. Any comments on that? Everybody agrees to everything. That's great. Then last slide. which no, it was not the last slide. So we also received quite a lot of comments about the IANA tables, especially the algorithms, that it was a bit unclear which parameters was supported and not, and also exact encoding, and that the identifiers were a bit unclear. So we completely rewrote them. We removed the identifiers and gave them more descriptive names. And then we skipped the old format, and now there's a one mapping between the CBOR value and their encoding of the whole algorithm identifier. We believe this simplifies things and also make them more strict and exact. It also allows use of it allows registration of algorithms with any form of parameters, and we now added we previously supported RSA with null, which may or may not be a parameter, and the named curve, but now we can also support RSA PSS, which is at least mentioned in both the browser baseline requirements and CNSA, even if I haven't seen any use on the web. Any comments on that? No. Then last slide, which hopefully people will have comments on. So this was discussed on the list raised by Lawrence about how easy or hard it is to implement the current draft or the CBOR sequence and CDL with current CBOR encoders, decoders. And the question is, should we make any changes to make it easy to use? And the problem, correct me if I'm wrong, Lawrence, is that it's hard to access a subpart of the encoded CBOR to verify to put as an input to the signature to verify that. And one of the suggestions was to wrap the to be signed structure in a byte string. That makes it easier to parse out. Then there was comment from Stefan that he thought it was quite easy to calculate offset with tiny CBOR and also in his own Rust implementation. Joel pointed out that the small size on the wire is important. Karsten pointed out that use a prefix is yeah, Karsten can explain that himself, but yeah.
So basically, when we did CBOR, we focused on having a single data item, and so all the initial CBOR APIs focused on that. But then we found out about the streaming and CBOR sequences and all that, and most or many CBOR implementations, I haven't done the scientific study of that, actually grew some APIs to actually work with sequences. And working with sequences doesn't just mean that you have sequences of encoded data items, but it also means that you can have a situation where you have one or even maybe more, in this case it would be 10 encoded CBOR data items, and then something else following. And this would work with a specific situation we have here. So I gave some examples for decoder APIs of decoders that I have written, but of course I couldn't do this work for all 65 implementations that are on CBOR.io. So we probably need to do a little bit more surveying there. But right now I'm pretty optimistic that we wouldn't create ourselves a big deployment problem by going with the way things are done in Dash 05.
And then the last point here I calculated, wrapping it in byte string would add 2 to 3 bytes, additional bytes, depending on the certificate, which would be unwanted, but not, it wouldn't be doable. Yeah. So, any comments? How to proceed here?
This is Lawrence. One other comment here is that if you did the byte string wrapping, you would guarantee that just about any CBORD decoder would be able to you'd be able to work with just about any CBORD decoder. It would be more or less a guarantee. Where, as it is, I haven't done a scientific study either, but, as it is, there's definitely some CBORD decoders that would have to be modified or couldn't be used.
Do we think these CBORD libraries will stay like they are, or will they in the future support CBORD sequences, which was not so long ago published as an RFC? Karsten, in a similar question, Karsten commented before that it was better to change the tool than the specification.
Trade-off, and there is no correct answer here. So we essentially just have to see, is the deployment headache that Lawrence has identified as not entirely trivial, is that worth saving 2 or 3 bytes? And then that's really a decision that I don't have a strong position on. All I wanted to say is the headache is there, but it's probably not a splitting headache.
Right, and it's not such a big headache because the start offset is easy. It's always 0, and the end offset is the structure is not complicated.
Actually, if I were implementing this, I would cheat and take the algorithm identifier I find, convert that into a number for the length of the signature. And if that is a fixed number, my work is easy.
Yes.
But not from the end.
Yes.
I will make an issue out of this. I think if it helps with implementation, I think 2 to 3 bytes are acceptable, but then they should be clear that this is really needed.
So one other comment on my own CBORD decoder has a couple of extra features that help it deal with byte string wrapping, particularly for COSE. So that's one of the reasons I like that, is that we already have this convention of doing it for COSE, and maybe some decoders have a way of dealing with COSE in inefficient ways.
Good. Any more comments on CBORD certificates? I will make an issue out of this and we'll wait and see. Otherwise, I think 06 version might come sometime in January or something.
That sounds good. There is one more slide. Okay, yes. Okay. Yes, for the last topic, I think that sounds good. Let's take some more time to think about it and discuss it again. But yes, for now, it's not clear which way is better. Okay, so
Procedural question. What is the point in time when we actually want to adopt this?
normally it's after we recharter. And
Yes, but we can make the decision that we want to adopt this in parallel with the rechartering. I mean, we cannot formally adopt it until it's in our charter, but we can make the decision. And since the decision involves a timeout, I think we could start doing that now.
Sounds good.
yes, sounds good to me. I don't know if Ben or Matthew have some comments.
No, that seems reasonable.
Okay, then we can, well, I guess we'll need to formulate it.
Conditional adoption call.
Okay,
But conditional on the rechartering.
okay, yeah, that sounds good to me. So we will add it to the minutes as an action item. Okay. Thanks, Karsten. Okay. So with that, I think we are, okay, Ben says in Jabber that he's not objecting to the decision. So that's perfect. Then any other business? Well, if not, thank you everyone for your participation, and we wish you happy holidays and see you or talk to you next year. I can try. Zbochem Sztafny Svatki. Let's see.
Thank you.
Holidays to you too.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.